Gotta make sure that no one can see that I've got notes. This headset is so sensitive. It can hear everything. If my hearing was a tenth as good as this headset is, I'd lose it. Are we recording? Is it on? So I don't think of myself as very articulate, but I will admit to being vocal. At such a time as this, when after years of progress, my kin in the transgendered and pansexual communities, as well as gay, queer, intersex communities, and so on, are facing a lot of backlash, it's not only my pleasure, but my moral obligation to speak out against contempt. So contempt, in my definition, is sort of a mix of hatred and apathy. It's like hating somebody or a group of people, but also being apathetic to their plea as a human being. Contempt is rampant, especially in the United States, in our politics, where these groups of people honestly feel like the other side of the argument has absolutely no worth. Not just as a contributor to the argument or the policy, but as a person. It's this contempt and outrage culture on both sides that is fueling a lot of the negative policy changes that we're seeing right now. There's a lot of contempt for transgendered people, or pansexual, intersex, asexual, bisexual, gay, lesbian, genderqueer of all types, and so on. Our alliance of letters is getting pretty long. It gets longer every year. And that confuses and upsets a lot of people. For that alliance, it's almost a cause for celebration to add new letters. We're proud to recognize how varied our membership is. I'm not sure you could find a more diverse alliance in all of human history, to be honest. It wouldn't be right for me to speak about diversity without taking a moment to thank, in particular, LGBT+ allies of colored skin who have been fighting for equality in my nation since its creation. It was people of color that cradled this alliance in its infancy, and they've borne the brunt of the attacks against it since that time. The progress we've made in the past 100 years or so, from being outright killed, sent away by our families, or even beaten by them into submission, to being able to get married and receive support from a loving community, wouldn't exist as it does today without our people of color. So we and the generations after us are forever indebted to your sacrifices, and I want to say thanks. On another note, it would be unfair of me to exclude allies of the cisgendered and heterosexual varieties as well. If it was easy to stand up for what is right and risk exclusion from the majority, then our world would be a much simpler and kinder place. But we all know that's not how it works. Your voices and actions are just as necessary as the members of our own communities. Our alliance is strong, and it gets stronger every day. But we can never be at our full strength without your continued support. You set a great example for your communities as well as ours to accept others that are different. We can't pretend like our alliance gets along with every single person in it. That's not true. The example that you set as people that have no skin in our game, but because of your humanity sympathize with us and throw your lot in with us, is very important. A lot of times when we're suffering in our personal lives, we start to believe that the actions and words of people that haven't suffered like us or as much as us have less importance. We let this competition of pain divide us instead of reaching out and saying, my burden is too heavy and I need you to help me shoulder the weight. Cishet people have been marching, fighting, going to jail, and dying for our alliance since before I was born. The way I see it is that we can continue to argue about who carries the most weight and drive people away, or we can all bear it together as one and be stronger for it. 54 years ago, a great speaker named Martin Luther King Jr. talked about cashing a check during one of his great speeches. He spoke of our nation's creed being a promissory note. And this note was written for equal rights, written out to all people. He posited that his people, the segregated people of color who had been freed from slavery only to be subject to institutionalized racism, had been written a bad check. In many ways, those people have never had that check paid, even generations later. As time has passed, we've discovered that many more people have been given these bad checks as well. Here's just a few. A check came back marked insufficient funds when Howard Eflin was beaten to death by the LAPD in 1969. A check came back marked insufficient funds when Rick Hunter and John Hanson were beaten bloody by Minneapolis police in 1982. Another was written in 1992, sent to Petty Officer Alan Schindler, killed in cold blood by a shipmate. Another in 2008 when Dwana Johnson was beaten by police and later found dead. That list goes on and on. Just last year, 2016, a terrorist attacked a gay nightclub in Orlando and killed 49 people. After decades of protests, riots, marches, deaths, beatings, stabbings, shootings, and so on, many people in our local, state, and national governments are still convinced that they ought not make good on their debts to marginalized citizens. For the sake of our dignity and our love for each other, and the honor of those harmed in defense of our alliance, I refuse to stop speaking, protesting, demonstrating, and fighting until those debts are paid in full. I want to ask all the members of the alliance to be active participants in the great struggle. We're going to be facing some more difficult times ahead. The work is going to be hard and the marches are going to be long, but we've got to do it. No one can sit out anymore. We just can't afford that. You need to call your representatives in government every day if you can. You need to be present at your town halls in number. Organize and demonstrate anywhere and anytime you can. Give generously to foundations that donate their time to take our fight to the courtroom across the nation and across the world. Finally, please be charitable in your communities. Give to those less fortunate. Donate your time to shelters, kitchens, and hospitals. We can't demand to be accepted into mainstream society if we're not doing everything in our power to contribute to it. Our goal can't be to harm, humiliate, or otherwise antagonize the cisgendered or the heterosexual people. Our goal is to be accepted by them and to win their friendship and respect. I think one of the best ways we can do this is to transform a society that neglects the downtrodden and the outcast and the stranger into a society worthy of its founding creed. We find these truths to be self-evident, that all are created equal. Thank you for taking a couple minutes to watch this. It means a lot to me. Please have a great rest of your day, and I hope you come back for my next video.